suspect!
Coming to get you, Barbara.
Hi guys, my name's Barry and welcome back to the channel. We're finally going to be talking about Barbarian. Now I know this movie came out a couple of months ago in the US. Unfortunately we had to wait till now to see Barbarian in the UK. So this review is going to have all the spoilers in it. We have a nice setup at the beginning between the characters Keith and Tess. They both book an Airbnb on the same weekend at the exact same time and the exact same place. And that is the mysterious part of the film to begin with. And we also see that in the trailers as well, where we don't know, and I don't know why we do this, but we automatically blame Keith. Is Keith up to something? We don't think about Tess being the one that's caused this or arranged this because of the point of view that we see it from, as well as Tess being a female and Keith being a male. So we start to paint a picture of Keith. Is he a bad guy? Is he up to something? How did they do it and why did they do it? Keith also makes excuses to Tess that she can't really find another hotel around town. This is really the only place she can live because there's a conference going on around the area. So she's got no option but to stay there for the night at least. Keith is then overly cautious about Tess's worries. He makes her a cup of tea earlier on, but she doesn't drink it and he automatically assumes it's because she didn't see him pour it. So he offers to pour her another tea in front of her, as well as open up a bottle of wine in front of her as well if she wants to have a drink, but she politely declines. Being the gentleman that Keith is, he offers up his bedroom to Tess and she happily takes the bedroom. And the first thing she does is lock the bedroom door so she can kind of relax, but she finds Keith's wallet there and it does say that that's his name, so he is telling the truth about who he is, and that kind of makes her feel a little bit better, and because of that she can kind of relax and start talking to him. And when she does start talking to him, she gets to know him as well, and she finds out at this point that he's not a bad guy. They find out what both of them are there for, and then they enjoy a little wine together. It looks like they were going to kiss at one point when they were making the bed, but nothing really comes of that. But they end the night on a high. During the night, Tess hears a noise and she feels like there's something standing at her bedroom door, and it runs away. And when she turns around, no one's there, but the door is open and she automatically thinks it's Keith. So she goes to find out where Keith is, but he's lying on the couch and she can see him from her bedroom door, but he seems to be having some sort of nightmare. But again, at this point we still don't know if Keith was the one that done it and ran back to his bed, or maybe Keith and someone else has got something to do with whatever plan it is they have. But she goes up to Keith to try and wake him up, and she ends up scaring Keith, and he starts to get a little bit freaked out by Tess at this point. She goes back to bed, closes the door, and this time locks the door. And when she wakes up, it's daytime. Nothing bad has happened during the night, but Keith is already gone, and he leaves her a nice note saying that he'll see her back here and good luck or break a leg for the interview. As Tess leaves for her interview, we see the neighbourhood that she's in the daylight for the first time, and it's a really run down bad neighbourhood in Detroit. She didn't realise how bad it was until this morning, because last night when she arrived it was raining and it was dark, so she couldn't really see anything, and neither could we as the audience. The neighbourhood is actually that bad. The woman who was interviewing Tess warned her of it as well. She gets back to the house, but there was somebody, it looks like it was chasing her to get out of the house, but she ran into the house in a hurry and forgot or didn't realise that she couldn't put the keys back in the box for Keith. So she gets back into the house and phones the police, but they said that nobody's coming, but the old man went away, so there wasn't much of a worry at this point. Tess ends up needing a shit, but she went to the toilet and there's no toilet paper. There was no toilet paper around the whole house until she found toilet paper in the basement of the house, but by going down there to get the toilet paper, she accidentally locked herself into the basement. And because she still had the keys to the house, it means that Keith couldn't get in and hear her shouting for help, so she had to wait and for Keith to come back. She got bored as she was waiting and she found a rope to what became the madness of the movie. This rope led to another room inside the basement, and it was a long, narrow, dark hallway that she used a mirror for some light, and she found a room at the end of this hallway that consisted of a videotape, a bed and a bucket, and it also had some blood and a handprint smeared on the wall, and that freaked her out and she wanted to get out of there. And luckily at this point Keith turned up and he managed to get her out of the basement. She told Keith about the basement and she told him that they had to get out of there, but Keith being Keith at this point, He decided he was very curious and he wanted to see what she saw, but she was like, nope, I'm not going back down there. But he wanted to see. But yeah, I did ask her politely, can you wait here so I can see what it is? In case I get locked in, you can help me out. But she reluctantly said yes. Keith was taking too long at this point, so Tess had to go and see if he was okay. But it still seemed like Keith was up to something because he never came back out. And when she went down to find out where he wasn't even in the room that was there. And that seemed to be the only room that was there at this point until she heard the screaming and she felt another door at the side of the door that she was in, and that led to stairs down to what seemed to be a further down basement with absolutely no light whatsoever. And she heard Keith's screams, but she decided that she couldn't leave him behind and had to go down to investigate. Finally, Keith popped up and he claimed that he was bitten by something or someone. And at this point, this is where the tone of the movie changed. This creature-like thing turned up and bashed Keith's head into nothingness, and Keith was dead. And then the movie just cut to another character that we're introduced to, and this is AJ. The introduction to AJ was an interesting one. He was on the phone to his agent, and they were telling him he was being cancelled because there was rape allegations against him. But at this point, AJ was completely denying the allegations, saying that that's absolutely false. Can I maybe contact her to tell her and ask her if we can sort this out? But they said, nope, you can't do that. And this led to AJ having to sell off some of his assets and sell off some of the homes and properties that he owned. The Airbnb in Detroit being one of them. He flies out to Detroit, back to the place, back to the house, the Airbnb, and he finds clothes and suitcases, etc. and didn't realise that anyone was living there. So he contacted the home agency that was managing his house, and they explained to him that, yeah, we only went out now and again to clean it, but nobody should be living there. And that kind of begs the question at the beginning of what happened. How did Keith get there? How did Keith book it? And also, how did Tess book the Airbnb as well on the same day? AJ then goes out on a night out with an old buddy who's living in Detroit, and this really opens up AJ. This tells us what AJ is actually like. And his friend asks him, did you really rape that person? And he's like, no, I didn't do it. But then he explains what he'd done. And he basically did rape the person, but in his eyes he didn't. So this shows the true nature of AJ, a person who doesn't own up to his mistakes and sees things from the wrong angle. When AJ is back in his house, he finally finds that room with the bucket, the bed and the videotape. And what a normal person would do is what Tess would do and freak out. But AJ, being the person that we find out that he is, he doesn't freak out. He does the exact opposite. He goes on to Google and finds out if he can sell the house for even more because there's more footage that he can sell. It leads to a genuinely funny moment where he takes his measuring tape and goes downstairs and finds even more space, and it gets him more and more excited.
Oh, baby.
Unfortunately for AJ, this measuring exploration led him to Mama, and it led him to be captured and placed into the same cell as Tess, who we now know is still alive. We then cut to another tone shift in the movie, almost like the explanation of the movie as to how we got to where we are. We're introduced to a character called Frank who leaves the house in a nice area, and it looks like from the look of the clothing, the cars, etc., we may be around about 35 to 40 years in the past. And we follow Frank to a shop where he's shopping for baby things. So that builds up a character of what Frank is. Why is he buying baby stuff to go back to the house? But after he purchases his baby goods, he sees a woman in the distance get into her car, a young lady, and he follows her back to her house. So we now know that Frank is a very creepy man, and he pretends to be someone from the water company. He wants to check the water pressure in her bathroom, but in doing so, he unlocks the bathroom window and then he leaves politely. He then goes back to his house, and it does reveal a really nice neighbourhood, but his neighbour mentions to him that they're selling up and they're leaving, but Frank doesn't seem interested in leaving the house. So we know that the neighbourhood's going to go to shit, but Frank doesn't care. And when he goes back into his house, he goes down to the bottom of the hallway, which leads to screaming, and then it cuts. After it cuts back to Tess and AJ, we now have that bigger picture as to what Tess and AJ are dealing with. They're dealing with what seems to be inbreeding over the 35-40 years because of Frank. AJ and Tess are forced to drink milk from a disgusting bottle with a lot of hairs on it. Tess drinks it, but AJ declines, and because AJ declines this, he's then taken into a room with Mama so that she can try and breastfeed him, but this also gives Tess the opportunity to escape. As Tess is trying to escape, she's helped by the homeless man who leads her out, but she says she needs to go back in and try and help AJ, but the homeless man says, do what you want, but I'm leaving. He knows about the old lady, and he knows that the old lady comes out at night. This also gave Tess the opportunity to get to a gas station and call the police. When the police arrive, they don't seem interested because Tess looks like a homeless bum just like everyone else in the area, but they reluctantly go to the house where Tess claimed that she was kidnapped, but they still don't believe what she's saying. They think that all it looks like is her breaking and entering, but they get a call saying there's a shooting in the area, so they have to leave, and they prioritise the shooting for Tess's claims. During the time Tess is away to get help, AJ gets away from Mama as well, and he goes down to a corridor where the Mama won't go, and we don't know why she won't go there. There is a bell attached to one of the rooms that AJ goes into, and that reveals Frank. Frank is still alive, and he's been living there for the 35 to 40 years, and he's old and decrepit. But AJ looks at him and thinks that Frank is not a bad guy. He sees Mama as the baddie of the movie, but Frank, being Frank and the person that we know, he is the true baddie in this film at this point. But AJ doesn't see him as a threat because he's an old man and lying in a bed. But as AJ is looking around the room, he sees a lot of videotapes, and that obviously explains the video recorder from earlier. He sees a lot of videotapes with people's names on it and what they do, and it reveals that Frank has been doing this over the years that we expected to happen, and that does show that Mama is this product of the 30 or 40 odd years of this inbreeding, which led to her superhuman strength, and it explains a lot of things. Obviously it doesn't explain things in the real world, but in the movie world we know why and how Mama is what she is. AJ said that he's going to get help and try and reveal everything that's happening, but Frank knows that this is the end of the line for him. Whether he kills AJ or not, he knows that people are going to become looking for AJ, so he decides to kill himself. As AJ grabs the gun and escapes, Tess is on her way in to rescue AJ, and they end up meeting up, but AJ doesn't realise it's Tess and shoots her, and we think he shoots her dead because her eyes are open and she's not moving, but she's still alive and she's just wounded, so both of them try to get out, and they eventually do get out into the street. They wander around looking for help, and the first person they see is the homeless man, and he pulls them in to safety, and they explain that they have to try and get some help because she's wounded. And at this point AJ then gets a chance to maybe try and redeem his character because he's trying to right the wrongs and own up to the things that he's done over the years, including what happened tonight with shooting Tess. But Tess is like, it's okay, it was an accident, let's just get help. So at this point AJ seems to be this guy who's redeeming himself, and the homeless man says, don't worry about it, you can stay here the night. She doesn't come out to this far out. And as soon as he says that, lo and behold, the Mama, the mother, comes back and kills the homeless man. But this also gives Tess and AJ a chance to try and get away. As AJ and Tess try to get away, it shows everything that AJ says was kind of completely bollocks, because he's running in front of Tess saying hurry up, and he's not trying to help her, he's just trying to get away. But both of them manage to get to the top of this water tower where Mama does come up behind them, and then AJ, going back to the way he was at the beginning, he reveals his true self. He grabs Tess and uses her as a shield, and he throws Tess off of that water tower as like a coward. And Mama, being the Mama that she thinks she is, she jumps off the building to protect and save Tess. AJ goes down to the bottom of the water tower expecting both of them to be dead, but fortunately the Mama breaks Tess's fall and Tess is still alive, and then AJ goes back to his old ways and tries to explain his way out of the situation, trying to say that the bad thing he'd done was for good, just like he did with the rape case at the start of his introduction to the movie. But Tess is having none of it, and even before he gets a chance to explain himself, Mama gets up and kills AJ, and I think it's a rightful kill because of what AJ was and the way he became. He was almost like the true bad guy in this film alongside Frank, but at this point you feel sorry for Mama, but Mama does say to Tess, or try to pull Tess up and say, let's go back home. Tess obviously doesn't want to do that. She does feel sorry for the Mama, but she does go ahead and shoot the Mama in the head and kills her. Is she dead? Well, I think the box office will decide that. I think the moral of the story is anyone could be a bad guy in this film. It could be the mama because she does kill people, but she doesn't really know what she's doing. She was the product of inbreeding over the years by another bad guy, Frank, who's probably to me the true bad guy in the film, because if it wasn't for Frank, then there would be no mama. But then you've also got AJ, who's one of these guys who doesn't own up to the bad things that he does, and he's got an excuse for everything that he does, even to the very bitter end. And then you've got Tess, who isn't a bad guy, but she makes really bad decisions in the film, which led to her being captured, and she ends up killing the mama. And I think she does it in self-defense, but at the same time, Mama wasn't wanting to hurt Tess. But out of all those characters, I would say that Tess was the least likely to be the bad guy, but Frank and AJ were up there with being the worst. But then we've got this lesson to learn because we've got that other character, Keith, who we suspected throughout most of his appearance in the film. When you look at AJ, we didn't really suspect him, we felt sorry for him. But then when you look at Keith, we suspected him all the way through this film until he died. So if anything, Keith was the most innocent person in the movie, but the one we suspected most. The film to me felt like Jeepers Creepers. It was one of those movies you went into blind and expected, in Jeepers Creepers terms, expected this slasher movie, but halfway through the film a monster was revealed in the creeper. And then in Barbarian, I went into this film expecting some sort of mysterious kidnapping style movie with Keith, but it ended up being a monster movie halfway through it. When I say a monster movie, it was a monster-like character. And funnily enough, both movies feature Justin Long. Although this film is getting rave reviews most of all, anything I read online, it's still getting this split view on it. Some people love it, some people hate it. But I'm in the group where I absolutely loved this movie. I was one of these people that loved it from beginning to end. I loved the mystery at the start. Is Keith a bad guy? Is Tess even a bad guy? How did they get to book this Airbnb at the same time? It was just a mystery right up until the reveal of the monster-like character in Mama. And even when she was revealed, I was still loving it, even with that shift in tone, because we got other characters introduced just to add to the mystery of the movie. So what are your thoughts on Barbarian, guys? I want you to leave your comments down below. Let me know what you thought of the movie leading up to the reveal of the twist, and also let me know what you think of that twist, because obviously it was a major shift in the tone because of what was revealed. But anyway guys, leave your comments down below, let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.